We were live.
All right, good. We welcome everyone to the closing ceremony of Global Social Business Summit 2021. 13 sessions, 14 workshops, 130 club convention, 14 country forums. This has been the scale of the Global Social Business Summit 2021. We would like to acknowledge the participants at Mount Kenya University who have continued to be with us with utmost enthusiasm, and this has encouraged us even more. We have had an astounding 50,000 views on the broadcast of this year's Global Social Business Summit across various social media platforms and on YouTube, with more than 4,000 views on average for each session. The total reach for all sessions combined so far has been more than 150,000. On Jubilo alone, we have had 1,090 participants till date, and the total number of views of all sessions have been more than 2,000. We have had 28 virtual booths with more than 1,700 visits. 1,809 messages have been exchanged between participants on the Jubilo platform. All of this merely shows that we have been able to leverage technology and revel in the spirit of social business as the conference has moved to a hybrid format. With this, I move on to our first keynote speaker for the closing ceremony. Is Marcela Villarreal, who's the Director, Partnerships and UN Collaboration Division of Food and Agricultural Organization of the UN, FAO. Marcela Villarreal has a PhD in rural sociology from Cornell University, and she is responsible for the implementation of FAO's innovative strategies on partnerships with civil society, academia, research institutions, and collaboration with other UN agencies. FAO has been instrumental in supporting social business initiatives in the Central African Republic, and of course, social business for zero hunger. Without further ado, I would like to invite Marcela to deliver her keynote. Over to you, Marcela.
Thank you. Thank you so very much indeed. I'd just like to start by saying how delighted I am to be able to be part of this massively successful Global Business Summit. For us and the UN, and specifically us in FAO, the impact that the Global Business Summit has is massive. And today what I'd like to share with you is some reflections around the food system. So why the food system? This year is the year of the food system. We just had a food system summit that was convened by the Secretary General of the United Nations. Why did he place so much attention on the global food system at this time? Well, because basically a good food system doesn't only give us what we need to be nourished and healthy, but it also has a lot to do in terms of climate change, in terms of equality and equity. So it basically underpins the whole development agenda. The SDGs, 17 SDGs, will very much be improved if we are able to have better food systems. Now, in what way better? We know that food systems need to be transformed. And it came out very, very clearly in this summit recently. And food systems, the idea is to be able to transform them to be more sustainable, more equitable, very importantly, and more resilient. Now, for us, it's very important to see how is that transformation going to take place, and basically how the principles and the values behind social business can help us transform agri-food systems precisely to transform them to be more sustainable, equitable, and resilient. Now let us look at how the food system, currently we have a global food system that is inherently flawed. It is a food system that at the same time produces enough food for everybody in the world. It's not an issue of production. It is an issue of equity of access, of poverty, because at the same time, as we have enough food worldwide for every single human being, more and more of our fellow human beings are going hungry every day. So this number, right now, we have almost 800 million people who are going to bed hungry every single day. And this is a number that has massively increased during this last year. So at the same time that the global food system produces enough food, it produces increasing amounts of hunger, including of acute hunger, and at the same time increasing, and that's also increasing very, very fast, amounts of people who are overweight and obese. And today we have 672 million people in the world who are obese. That's about the amount of people who live in the whole of Europe, and 2 billion people who are overweight. So it's a very, very flawed food system with really inherent problems, and a lot of the problems it have to do precisely with inequality. And last year and this year, we're still seeing it. The effect of the pandemic has been devastating. During this last year, we had the single largest increase in number of hungry people in 1 year since all the time that FAO has been keeping records. So in just 1 year, the number of people who are food insecure jumped by 161 million people from 1 year to the next. And this is there's three major drivers of food insecurity in the world, which are conflict, very importantly and increasing, climate change during the COP spill, and also economic downturn, economic slowdown, and inequality. And this last year, this massive increase, 161 million, it's mostly because of the COVID pandemic. So we all know that the COVID pandemic basically thrives on poverty and inequality. There is where we see the highest impact. But at the same time, it is creating more poverty and more inequality. So what can we do to try to address this massively flawed world food system? Well, during the Food System Summit, we heard about more than 2,000 proposals for game-changing solutions in order to transform this world food system. But for us in FAO, one of the most important elements of this equation is with family farmers, with smallholders. Now, family farmers and smallholders, they produce a vast amount of the food in the world. We know that around 80%, 70% of the food in the world is produced by family farmers, whereas around 34, more than a third of the food produced in the world is produced by smallholders. So they have a key in the food system. And smallholders are entrepreneurs in their own right. We know that they are self-made entrepreneurs and very good entrepreneurs at that. However, they really bear the brunt of the diverse risks that the agriculture sector has to face every single day. Obviously, climate change, very directly, they're the most exposed to the effects of climate change. But they also have a number of difficulties to be able to develop their potential, like specifically access to credit, access to everything else that they need to be able to be productive in agriculture, like inputs, like seeds, land, and so on. So at the same time that they're vital for our survival as a human species, they really are not getting what they deserve in terms of support. So what we need to do is to have a redesigned economics model as the one that has been discussed throughout these last days. So we know that family farmers are 3 billion people in the world. They provide the livelihoods to 3 billion people. We're not talking about any small number. And the idea of sustainability is ingrained in the family farm. The family wants to leave the farm to the next generation. It wants to preserve biodiversity for the future, for the next generation, and therefore for the future of humanity. So the idea of sustainability is ingrained in the model of family farming. But also within the model of family farming, we have the values that have been discussed during these days. Its family farming model is based on the model of selflessness, of moral responsibility, of trust, of care, and also very importantly, of sense of community. and a social mission that is also at the same time an ecological mission, one of sustainability. So in the model of family farming, we are really seeing entrepreneurs that when they are adequately supported, they can really drive the world away from this model of indifference, selfishness, and unemployment. And this is already happening in the Central African Republic with support of Professor Yunus and the Yunus Foundation. Here we have a model by which we are showing how these values can really transform, in this case, the local food system, but we need to learn from that experience to be able to transform the world food system also with these very central values. Planting the seeds of a new economy. Well, if we want to plant the seeds, let's use not only the metaphor, but let's look at the seeds. Let's look at the seeds that the family farmers need. We want to transform the world. We want a new economy. Let's start with the food system. Let's start with the family farmers. And let us redesign the economics of the world food system by incorporating these values in order to create a sustainable transformation towards a food system that will be more equal, more sustainable, and actually that will result in more resilience. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Marcela, for your keynote. We are delighted to know how FAO is integrating social business and food system and getting such great initiatives on the ground. Thank you very much. Next, we have Dr. Vanessa Kerry, who's the co-founder and CEO of Seed Global Health. Vanessa is also the Associate Director of Partnerships and Global Initiatives at Mass General Global Health and Assistant Professor at the Harvard Medical School. Vanessa has played a very key role in the vaccine campaign that is being run by Yunus Center under Professor Yunus's leadership, and she addresses key issues in relation to health inequalities. Vanessa also leads grassroots health programs. Vanessa, over to you for the keynote.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to join everybody here today. And I'm smiling because my organization is called Seed Global Health. So there's clearly a theme of planting seeds. We plant seeds in healthcare, but it is all the same idea that we must nurture and grow the world that we want to live in and build that ecosystem that is so important to us, which is not just the physical world we live in, but the social world and the social contracts by which we live by. I'm incredibly honored to be included in this discussion with all of you, with Professor Yunus, and with the distinguished speakers. The Global Business Summit and all of you have been engaged in one of the most critical conversations of this time. We are facing existential challenges at every turn. There's a global pandemic ongoing, there's climate change, there's shifting governments and political backdrops, there's increased migration, there is a whole number of stresses and economic downturn that has been happening. But at the base of each of these issues really is the growing inequity gaps that we see in the world today. And those that are already most vulnerable are those that are being hardest hit by the challenges that we see. We see this not only in who gets sick and who dies, in who gets the vaccine, but who is impacted most by climate change and who is rendered stateless while waiting asylum. COVID-19 is a very dramatic example. It has affected every single person on this planet, but it disproportionately continues to damage the health and well-being of low and middle income countries and populations more than anybody else. As we've heard, there's increased food security and reduced access to healthcare. We've been reversing progress in maternal and child mortality, as well as in infectious and chronic diseases. The ongoing vaccine inequity that is threatening the health and well-being and economic recovery of not just low-income countries, but the world is appalling. Only 1% of the population has received a single vaccine dose in low-income countries compared to 51% in high-income countries. And around the world, only 2 out of 5 healthcare workers has been vaccinated. And in sub-Saharan Africa, only 1 out of 10. Additionally, the combination of COVID-19 and climate change is actually threatening to push another 150 million people into poverty. So it's appropriate this conference is called Planting the Seeds of Change. And the goals of the 3-0 Club for zero emissions, zero wealth concentration, and zero unemployment are some of the most fundamental challenges that if we can fix, we will fundamentally transform the world that we live in today. Unfortunately, the disparities in who is impacted are also being seen in what we are calling our recovery from this moment. Because though COVID has brought the world to a standstill and has impacted all, the most vulnerable continue to remain those in resource-limited settings. And while the global economy is starting to rebound after a close to 4% contraction, really, there is now sort of a recovery is happening at record-breaking speed in high-income countries that are being vaccinated, but the lower and middle-income countries are lagging behind. And in fact, among low-income economies, same places where vaccination is lagging, growth has actually now been, the projected growth is coming down. And if you look, then the expected growth now is at the slowest pace of expansion in 20 years that we have seen in these countries because of the continued challenges they face. And unfortunately, the projected growth for low and middle income countries is projected to be much lower than it was pre-pandemic. So as we look to what we call recovery, it's really the question of what kind of world do we want to live in today? And here's the moment that we decide, you decide, how our world is going to be organized, who is included, and how we move forward. Because we cannot build back just better, we actually have to build back transformatively. And for example, in health, where I have spent my entire career focusing on closing the healthcare gaps that exist in the world today, it's a terrific example of the challenges we face. Because beyond investing in health just being the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. It provides economic growth and security, national security, social inclusion. And it turns out that at many levels, investments in the health workforce pays for itself. Investing an additional 2% of gross domestic product into social sectors, for example, raises overall employment rates by as much as 6%. Supporting safe and secure employment and health actually reduces gender disparities, with women absorbing 60 to 70% of the jobs. And it creates a pathway for formal work and inclusion, social inclusion, equity, and all of that rolls back into healthier economies, healthier communities, and growth. The jobs that are created are more resilient in economic downturns. And the ultimate return of investment in health is estimated to be 9-to-1 across all sectors. But in midwifery alone, for example, it's 16-to-1. And that for each year of life expectancy we can create, GDP can raise by up to 4%. And yet we are failing to make progress in this world. Because COVID has worsened the health inequities, 90% of countries have seen disruptions in essential services. Immunizations have been disrupted by up to 70%, management of non-communicable disease by 70%. And these disruptions are far worse in lower and middle income countries, where TB deaths are up for the first time in over a decade, maternal mortality is on the rise. And there's 4 times as many polio cases in polio endemic countries now, for example. So we do have an opportunity to look critically at our challenges and invest strategically in the well-being for all. And this is exactly where SEED is focusing specific to the holistic investments of the healthcare workforce. 115,000 healthcare workers have died in COVID. And we've heard a great deal of applause. I am a healthcare worker, and I've spent the last year working on the front lines, helping to care for COVID patients. But we've seen very little action to invest in and support our healthcare workers. Before COVID alone, there was a global shortage of the healthcare workforce that was expected to go up to 18 million by 2030. And recent estimates from the International Council of Nurses has forecasted a global gap of 50% of our nursing workforce by next year, which means we are going to have an insufficient number of trained healthcare workforces to not only address COVID and the disruptions that we've seen, to protect us from the existing burdens of communicable and non-communicable disease, but also to manage the growing health inequities we're seeing from climate change. And yet we know strong health systems, founded on a robust and well-trained workforce, can undergird both climate resilience, pandemic preparedness, and address these burdens of disease. It is a foundation for economic growth and recovery, and it provides a path to social inclusion. So at SEED, we have actually partnered with governments to try to help fill those gaps. We grew up as a small entrepreneurial organization, but we have deep ambition because we fundamentally have to close the gaps that exist still today in 2021. And we focus on training a generation of the rising generation of healthcare providers who can not only provide care and train their successors, but through a combination of on-the-ground work and advocacy about the importance of health and how you link the two can be transformative to the health systems they work in. But SEED realizes we can no longer just rely on the work that we do on the ground. We must engage in the critical debates of today and help push how we think on what we are doing and how we are going to respond to this moment. And so we are now committed to helping to create a movement in which every government prioritizes human capacity as a critical, necessary, and leading lever in our overall being. That the health workforce investments are a tide that lifts all boats, and the front lines of our COVID response and vaccine delivery will lead, they are the front lines of our COVID response, vaccine delivery, and better health, improved economies, all of the benefits we see. And we are committed to challenging global stakeholders and dysfunctional power dynamics to adopt a new approach to health system strengthening, which prioritizes investment in human capacity. And this approach will require mobilizing large sustainable financing, lengthening timelines for results, and the ability to achieve true resilience, decoupling policy from financial support, prioritizing country-led, community-based planning around workforces, programming and capacity building, and fully recognizing that those who are left outside the formal workforce, including women and community health workers, are essential. We are committed to challenging the status quo, but we cannot do this alone. We need your leadership, your creativity, your courage, and your deep understanding that the world can be different, better, and more inclusive. So I encourage you in the work that you are about to go do, because we have all the tools, all the science, all the knowledge, all the resources that exist in the world today. What we lack really is the leadership and political will. And that is where I call on all of you to help us to create that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. We deeply appreciate the very critical and key issues that you've highlighted in health inequalities, and your call to action greatly inspires us. Thank you very much. With this, we move on to the segment of the vote of thanks. And for that, I would first like to invite Saskia Breistein, the co-founder and CEO of Social Business. Saskia has spent the last decade in promoting and integrating social business into the working framework of corporates all around the world, and has played a key central role in the global social business movement. Social Business runs key programs in Africa, and with that, I invite Saskia to take over. Sas, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Promi, and thank you to the whole team of both Yunus Center and Grameen Creative Lab for pulling this crazy agenda off these last couple of days. It was like action-filled days, so I'm sure everyone is still sort of like heads are turning, and everyone's still sort of very excited about what has been going on. So thanks for inviting me to just share a little bit what we're working at Yunus Social Business. And I was actually just thinking specifically with Vanessa and Marcella speaking ahead of me on the important topics of agriculture and health, that I should definitely speak about a couple of practical examples of social businesses in our portfolio that are related to these topics. But before that, maybe just to give you a quick overview of what we do at Yunus Social Business. We basically were founded now exactly 10 years ago, with the intention to see how could we help bring some of those successful models of social business from Bangladesh to other countries. And we do that in two different ways. On the one hand, we ourselves provide loans to social business entrepreneurs in India, East Africa, and in Latin America. They're based out of Colombia and Brazil. and also support them. So that's kind of the one arm of the work that we do. And on the other side, we also believe that we need to apply these principles to social business, not just to individual entrepreneur-led companies, but we need to take those principles to apply those to large global corporations, because only then will we really fundamentally change the economy. And so in some ways, that's why our approach is, on the one hand, to take those small companies and help scale them up and grow that niche to a much larger part of the economy on the one side, and on the other side, take those giants in the economy and try and slowly but surely change them and transform them. So that's basically our dual approach. We call it like the top-down approach, from top down, the corporates, and also the bottom-up approach, from bottom-up entrepreneur-led companies. So that's how we work at UNO Social Business. And I know that particularly this forum is also happening, obviously, with a focus on East Africa, because a lot is happening in Kenya right now as we speak. So I was actually thinking perhaps to share a couple of companies from our portfolio in East Africa that could be of interest to you, to just actually see how all of this comes to life practically. So perhaps starting with a health-related company in East Africa that we've invested into. It's actually a company that I've already mentioned a few times before. It's a company that was one of our very first investments. They've decided that they wanted to tackle the problem of access to clean drinking water in East Africa. They started in Uganda, and by now have actually expanded to Kenya and also Nigeria. And they provide clean drinking systems to schools across the region. The company is called Impact Water, and they've now reached 3.5 million people with clean drinking water as a sustainable business model, also at the same time actually having a very positive impact on the environment, because the alternative for people to have clean drinking water is to chop off trees, burn trees, and thereby obviously create massive CO2 emissions. So this company doesn't only generate revenues from actually selling the systems, but also gets carbon credits. So it's a dual positive whammy in terms of healthcare, and of course also from the environmental perspective. So that's one example. But also just to mention a couple of agricultural companies, of which we have many, because obviously agriculture is the area and that sector that provides more than 50% of the employment in East Africa. So for example, we have a fantastic company in Kenya that we just invested into called Burton and Bamber, and they actually take they buy products like mango, but also other fruits, and process them into dry fruit. Because why dry fruit? It actually allows the farmers to not only sell their product exactly when they're ripe, but also later in the season, which actually allows them to get much more significant amounts for their production. And at the same time, also those products don't go bad, they don't go to waste, and they can actually be stored in a much better way. So it's a much better result and a much higher income for the farmers at the same time, and therefore food waste is also avoided in this case. There's another exciting company called Achila Enterprises that just works with now over 9,000 smallholder farmers, and actually buying from them just simple products, sorghum, etc., and then exporting it, or also selling it, bulking it and selling it for local production. So there's really a number of agricultural social businesses that actually ensure that the smallholder farmers that otherwise, on their own would never be able to make any significant income, have significant income by bulking them, and also, of course, by ensuring that the end products are processed end products and thereby fetch higher prices. So agriculture is a very, very important space for social business, and it's a very exciting space for social business. So there are many practical examples. But obviously also in East Africa, there are a number of other sectors that are important. For example, obviously education. And in Kenya, for example, we've invested into a company called ED Partners. And ED Partners tackles the problem that schools often just do not have enough funding to actually even get started in the first place. I mean, there are not enough good government schools. And so a lot of families have to resort to affordable private schools, because that's the only way that they can get their kids educated in the first place. But to get those schools started, nobody's willing to actually give that startup capital for them. So ED Partners actually finances low-cost private schools to actually ensure that they can get off the ground, because there is enough demand for schooling, and actually grow those. That's another exciting company. There's another lovely company called DGE that provides solar systems and actually solar lamps to by now already over 90,000 people in Kenya, and by that also employing over 200 solar entrepreneurs that are actually the ones installing those, of which half of them are women. So there's a number of exciting companies in our portfolio in East Africa alone that tackle in a social business way the major topics that we all have, which are income generation, so no unemployment, and at the same time, obviously, agriculture is one of those particular sectors is very important for income generation, but also healthcare, education, you name it, the major essential topics that we have. I will mention one more company because I like them very much. In East Africa, they're called Tugende. They actually lease motorcycles to unemployed young men mainly, for them to use those motorcycles as motorcycle taxis to transport products and products from A to B, transport people from A to B, and just to get around really. And they have now leased these bikes to over 30,000 young men, and have actually ensured that these people can double their income, because once they own the bikes, they actually double their income, so they don't have to pay rent to the landlords. And so it's a very effective and a very fast-growing company that we've been part of for a number of years now. Similar one we have, which is called Cycle Connect, which does the exact same thing with bicycles, which is a very important way to get around in the rural areas. So I hope I helped a little bit to give you a little bit of a concrete idea of what social business actually look like in East Africa. And I know that there are a lot of academics here also from East Africa that wanted to see what does this actually look like in practice. And I hope that that was helpful to get a bit of an understanding. If I still have a minute, I'll also share a couple of examples on the corporate side and some exciting work that we're working with on the top-down side of our work. So we just launched a program earlier this year called the Unusual Pioneers Program. We always say UNOS is an unusual pioneer, so a pioneer that has obviously done business in a very different way. We actually want that more unusual pioneers exist, particularly in large corporations. And so this is a program that we set up together with the World Economic Forum, where 15 global corporations have come together, including Medtronic, MasterCard, AXA, and a number of big companies you can imagine, focusing on growing the social business initiatives that they already have within the company. And to just name a few, AXA, for example, and I think Garance has perhaps also spoken at one of the previous social business days, they provide insurance, health insurance, but also a number of other insurances to people across sub-Saharan Africa and now also South Asia at a very affordable price and tailored to the needs. Smallholder farmers are also one important target group, especially now with obviously droughts and climate change happening. Insurance for these types of topics is going to be extremely important. So insurance is not very sexy, but it's really, really important. And this business alone, this social business alone, reaches 42 million people with these innovative insurance products. So that's just one example of a global corporation, how when they actually move into our field, they can really, really make a significant example. I could continue to talk about this for hours, but I know that I'm running out of time. I heard the bell, so I'm going to kind of stop and end it here. I just want to say again, like a big thank you to UNOS Center and also the Grameen Creative Lab for organizing this. I think these types of conferences are very, very important in terms of planting the seeds and getting new people excited about social business as a very, very powerful tool to reach the 3 zeros that we're all trying to reach, and to really move from all the talk and blah, blah, and etc. that we hear from global CEOs, etc. to concrete action. So I'm really, really excited to be part of this and hope that we'll have more of these in the coming years. So thanks so much. And I'll hand over back to you, Promi.
Thank you very much, Sas. We deeply appreciate it. Thank you so much for elaborately outlining all the great businesses that you've been supporting. It, again, inspires us greatly. From Saskia Broystein, we move over to Dr. Vincent Gaito, who's the Pro Vice Chancellor of Mount Kenya University. I know that we still have all the attendees in Mount Kenya University there with us. We give a huge shout out to them. Thank you for staying with us. We acknowledge your presence. Mount Kenya University has not only hosted this year's summit, and we can see them on screen right now, but they've also been adding greatly to the academic paradigm of social business movement. Again, we give a big thumbs up, a big shout out to everyone who's there. Dr. Vincent, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And from Mount Kenya University, we appreciate this opportunity to be part of the summit, the Social Business Summit 2021. Special thanks goes to, of course, we thank God for his providence. We also thank Professor Eunice and the entire Eunice Center and the Grameen Creative Lab for hosting this very, very important summit. Of course, we also thank, in a very special way, all the delegates, all the presenters who have been on this summit for so many days. It has made it worthy celebrating. Of course, we also give very special thanks from Mount Kenya University, particularly for the opportunity that our people have learned, our students, our faculty members have had a wonderful learning experience, which when we go back to our usual business, we shall be able to apply and make a very significant development and transformation of our people, of our continent, and especially as we sit here and listen to the narrative that is so much time spoken about Sub-Saharan Africa. I've made some observation, and in particular, I understand and I appreciate the theme of this particular summit, planting the seeds towards a new economy, and time is now. This theme calls to mind a people geared towards renaissance, called towards rebirth, whose motivation is informed by contemporary situation that expose the world to risk of disaster and extinction of species. So it is important that we keep asking ourselves, how do we go forward? I've made some observation that this particular meeting has confirmed the reality of globalization, where arbitrary regional boundaries are becoming meaningless. The contemporary issues of the pandemic, technology, climate change is a manifestation that political arbitrary boundaries have no meaning. COVID has taught us that we are one, and being one, we must work for the good of each one of us. It also gives us an opportunity to ponder on Professor Eunice's concern of whether the present economic systems are able to establish appropriate levels of moral, social, and material balance in the world. In other words, could the 3-0 concept be the way out? We could still ask ourselves, is the world ready for a 3-0 purposed way of life? We could still ask ourselves further, is the present entrepreneur whose motivation is mostly profit maximization ready to transform towards social business mode whose greatest return is solving human problems? We need to persuade ourselves and commit that the purpose for business is not profit maximization, but it is to make good those that depend on us. Having said this, I look at the narrative of disparity and inequitable livelihood that is at the desk for a very long time. Sub-Saharan Africa has always been at the lower floor. Currently, in terms of COVID vaccination, previous speakers have said it, that the level of vaccination in Africa is low. The level of food security is low, which means that we need to rethink the systems that we are using. Africa needs to rethink the systems because they don't seem to work for us. But of course, there are some basic truths and realities that we cannot ignore. That the global reality of climate change, pandemic, and technology offers us a window to examine more sustainable ways of sharing our only common heritage, our one Earth. Whatever happens in any part of this world affects that poor family in Sub-Saharan Africa. An innocent poor family in Sub-Saharan Africa could be suffering today because of the pollution that is taking place in other parts of the world. It is important that we rethink. It is therefore time to rethink the domination or the dominant attitude of our times and to embrace stewardship of nature. Concentration of wealth among the few should awaken us to the vanity of the transient nature of man. We are not here for long. Therefore, you can say the flip side of the disruption is that the disruption of the global supply system during the COVID pandemic is a wake-up call to establish regional supply systems that are more participatory and are more sustainable. To conclude, ladies and gentlemen, we would say the Global Social Business Summit 2021 has assembled diversity and confirmed that if we care for each other, the world will be a better place to live in. We must accept the reality that the present generation is not the appointed purpose of creation or the existence of the earth, but a steward who are supposed to pass it on. May all that has happened in this summit hence become an opportunity for us to solve the human problem. Finally, the 3-0 concept proposed going forward resonates very well with Mount Kenya University new status as the United Nations Academic Impact Hub for SDG 10, which seeks reduction of inequality. As a university, we commit to support this particular purpose. And we thank everybody who has participated. We thank the Unity Center for giving us the opportunity to interact with you. Thank you very much, and God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We deeply appreciate that, Dr. Vincent. And again, our sincerest appreciation to the entire team at Mount Kenya University. With that, I now move over to Hans Reitz, the CEO of the Grameen Creative Lab, the person who's brought us together for the last decade in this Global Social Business Summit. He's created some wonderful synergies, wonderful projects, and wonderful partnerships have come out globally from all of Hans's efforts in the global social business movement. Hans, over to you, please.
There will be a time, there will be no choice than social business. I started with this quote of Paolo Coelho on the 6th of November and will close it. This quote was done by 2010 on the second Global Social Business Summit, and the time is now. And when we see the last days and when we see the actual situation, I have to say, as Professor Yunus said, there is no going back. But this no going back is why? Because it's not anymore a crisis where we're fighting against. It's not anymore one crisis in the financial sector or one crisis there in the health sector, or there's one crisis there. It is a total disaster now. We are in the middle of the biggest catastrophe. And I really have to say thanks to Vanessa, because Vanessa, your very empathic words and your very true words of emotion, what it means at the moment, not more than the healthcare sector really shows us the disaster where we are in, you know. And thanks a lot for this very clear commitment from your side to be part of us. And we always need new kids on the block, and I'm very happy to be on board as well. And let me see now, you know, we also saw very clearly, we reached a level what we could only dream about 10 years ago. When the CEO of BNP Paribas announced that they already invested after 5 years to meet us in Paris, 2.2 billion into microfinance and social business is really a move. If Andrea Young achieved 1.2 billion donation for the Grameen America, it's really a move. So it's not more about millions of people to reach, it's not more about millions of money resources, it's about billions conscience. And why? It's not because it's about us, because we are very special. No, people really watch for guidance. People need navigation. People look really out, where are the solutions? And the solutions was not the problem of tomorrow. The solutions will really fix it. Because if you don't fix the problems today, we will have not another chance for tomorrow. And that makes a difference to everything what we had before. And in this way, Lamia and Professor Yunus representing the Grameen family, I can tell you we are very happy to say we are part of this, because from the very beginning, Professor Yunus and the Grameen Bank shows 40 years ago, this is not a solution only for today, this is a solution for many, many, many decades. So let's be inspired by the principles of social business. Let's be inspired to be humble and in a way to be really in a humble way to inspire people for the next years. So we will do everything to make the GSBS next year by 2022, 2023, 2024 equally digitally like we do it today, because it's a very bold way, it's a very good way to do it. In the same moment, we negotiated at the moment with Vienna, with Turin, with Barcelona, with Berlin to hold next year the summit. It looks very good for Turin. I'm very happy if we can make it the first time in Italy, but equally, we can do it in Vienna, equally we can do it in Barcelona, and equally Johannesburg shows just up, Mumbai, Wolfsburg. So we have a huge interest of cities to host us as a city. And the city have, of course, an enormous power to solve the problems what we need. In this way, as a grandfather now, and as a way to see to the children who are just born, like Saskia's child who is now 3 years old, what world we would like to see and what choice they have. And Professor Yunus makes it very clear, the next 12 months are the most important 12 months for our next generation. And 1 month is a new year, and we should take every month to give our best in the we and see how we can serve society. And in this way, let's go and do it with joy, even it's a disaster like now, and let's go forward to humble a way, to make a way as much as we can on a joyful way, but in the same moment to respect the people who are really in a big mess. And I'm very thankful to be part in the whole family, and we keep on going and we keep it YY. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Hans. Deeply appreciate these inspiring words again and for reinforcing the urgency with which we have to act right now. With that, I welcome Mia Morshed, the Executive Director of Yunus Center, who's, as usual, been very critical in putting all of this together. She's been leading us for years and years, and she puts everything together and been instrumental in all that we have seen in the last 5 days. And of course, before that, the SBAC as well. Lamia, over to you, please.
Thank you so much, Promi, and thank you to the previous speakers. So I want to just keep my comments short, but mainly recognize everybody who's worked behind the scenes to create this event over the past 5 days with the summit and the 3 days prior to that with Social Business Academia Conference. But just make some brief comments also about the situation that we find ourselves in. that what was highlighted in this summit, this year's global summit, is the challenge before us and our lack of time to act, actually. The climate summit is ongoing, and we know that we have less than a 10-year window to limit global warming to 1.5 Celsius, after which we are told by scientists that there is no turning back. If this is the case, and if we don't act now, there's really not much else for us to talk about, and everything else kinds of fades into meaninglessness. So the topic of this summit was the planting of the seeds of a new economy. Time is now. And as we saw in our 16 sessions, 14 country forums, the 30 Club Convention, and the 14 workshops that were organized with hundreds of speakers from around the world, that we have many examples of large and small businesses, social businesses, can resolve the big challenges that stand before us in a sustainable way, putting people at the center rather than profits. The challenge now is how to scale up and amplify these social businesses that we have discussed, or the 30 clubs that we heard from yesterday, so that we can reach the positive tipping points for change towards the world of 3 zeros that Professor Yunus has talked about. One where we can live harmoniously with nature and with all humankind. We have examples of large nationwide social businesses, and also brilliant small ones, which can be the seeds of transformation in financing, healthcare, climate change, education, and everything else that we've been discussing. Since we don't have time, we have to be organized and intelligent in how we go forward and how we coalesce into a truly global movement. There are many forces that work against us. We heard yesterday about the predatory delays that are taking place by vested interests to prevent action on climate and on cutting global emissions. And that's at the core of the 30 Club messages from Professor Yunus, especially that the youngsters are the ones to inherit the earth, and they have to be engaged, and all of us have to be engaged in a global grassroots movement to achieve this. Sorry, I was put on mute for a second there. This goal of a world of 3 zeros. As in the case for all his work in the previous 40 years, Professor Yunus has given a systematic, replicable, scalable approach with the 30 clubs for us to mobilize towards that. And it is now up to us to take the challenge. I mentioned during the last few days that our role with the summit and the SBAC and all the forums is to accelerate and give momentum to all of your actions, and we seek your guidance on how we can do better as we go forward. We launched this time a global social business competition and the social fiction challenge, so that some of these examples can accelerate and move forward. As you heard from Promi, the total reach through this summit was 150,000 people on the social media platforms, 12,000 per session. This is quite a great number. And this has only been possible. It's a big event with many moving parts, dynamic parts, and it's not possible without the collaboration of all the people. And I'd like to thank them all. First of all, MKU, Professor John Struthers, Chancellor, Professor DeGracious Jagani, Dr. Vincent Gaito, Professor Peter Wanderian, all the teams, and the Jesse and Mary, who are the MCs from Mount Kenya. Thank you very much, and I'd like to wave and thank you for being with us all these days. Thank you very much. To Grameen Creative Lab, who are the co-organizers of this, Hans, his team, Maria, Nafisa, Asami, Israr, Sabir, Shweta, Nazmus, Natalie, and Tugba, thank you very much. This is not possible without you. The summit was conceived by Hans, and thank you for your collaboration here. To all the Grameen MDs and advisors, Nurjan Begum, Qazi Sultan Ahmed, Ashraful Hassan, Chaudhry Khalid Saifullah, Sajid Rahman, Nazmul Islam, Abdul Hai Khan, Zohrul Haq, Biplab, Ratan Kumar Nag, Babul Shaha, Moinuddin Chaudhry, Imamul Sultan, Qazi Nazrul Haq, Mohammad Anwar Hussain, and the advisors, Professor Latifi, Mahmoud Hussain, and Mr. Shah Jahan. All of you helped with coordinating all the country forums, and also a lot of what we've discussed is you were speakers, and much of the work is due to your contributions and inspiration. All the distinguished speakers and sent messages at the opening and the closing sessions. I would like to especially recognize Zanieli Mbeki, the former First Lady of South Africa, who's been with us from the very first day as a speaker and followed all our sessions. To the co-organizers of all the sessions, Grameen Trust, Yunus Social Business, Yunus Sports Hub, Yunus Environment Hub, Danone Communities, Glasgow Caledonian University, Grameen Creative Lab, Mount Kenya University, all the country forum organizers, the 30 Global Center, the YSB directors, tech support from Grameen Communications, YY Foundation and DPCL. And of course, I have to thank YYV, Shazib, and all of his team. These are the people who are behind the program and not visible a lot of the time. Shazib, Sharika, Samiha, Maisha, Inshira, Sakib, Mahmoud, Rifa, Aryan, Mustafizur, and Purbita. Our MCs, Prometheus, Robert, Dr. Mary, Lamia, and Jesse. Thank you very much. And of course, the Unicenter team, Urmi, Zinat, Shihab, Shabir, Tanbir, Arman, Maisha, Sadia, Aziz, Zahir, Selina, all the Unicenter interns and support staff. I have to recognize them because they have been working tirelessly for 2 months or more to make all of this happen. And they're not visible in front, especially not in the virtual setting. So I want to please recognize them. And last but not least, Professor Mohammad Yunus's vision, tireless and creative initiatives, actions and actions give impetus for the whole movement. Thank you very much. I'm sorry if I've missed anyone. And I would just like to take a moment now to please request all those I named to please turn on your videos inside Zoom if you are there, so we can thank you, applaud you, and take a picture. Thank you. Please turn on your cameras. Thank you. I'd like to please applaud you. Thank you very much. Aziz, can you take a photo of everybody in this scene? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Thanks. Back to you, Promi.
Thank you very much, Lamia. I greatly appreciate all the acknowledgements and, of course, all the efforts that you've been putting and the entire GCL and everyone has been putting year in, year out to bring us all together. Without further ado, I'd like to invite the person who's going to chart the course for the next 10 years, who's been charting the course for the last 40 or 50 years. We always look forward to hearing from him because he sets the goal, which we intently follow and which has been changing the world for the last decades, and it will change the world going forward. Again, it gives me great honor and great pleasure to invite to deliver the closing address, Professor Mohammad Yunus. Sir, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, finally it comes to me to conclude it. It's been a long, long journey. Before I move into some other issues, let me first thank Mount Kenya. Give a big applause to Mount Kenya again for everybody. Can we see them on the screen? Yes, indeed. I can see you. Wonderful. Finally, you are relieved. You have been working so hard. Feeling sorry for you that all round the clock you're doing that. Thank you so much. We appreciate what you have done. And thank you. It all started from 4th of November.
Yeah.
Now today is the 10th of November. So it's 7 full days, non-stop, round the clock, round the globe. This is what this thing is all about. It's a marathon conference. It's not a conference, it's a marathon conference. And inside the conference, there are conferences. So it's a kind of a big fruits within fruits kind of situation right now. So we have been inside of this big conference of conferences going on. Today, it will come to a conclusion. That's a celebration that we want to make. Finally, we conclude. And behind this, it's a nightmare for organizers to make that happen, to take care of the time differences and different kind of speakers, to have the right kind of time slot for the person. And nightmare for the tech team was to go do it round the clock performance and make sure that it doesn't fail. And luckily, it didn't fail. So we want to thank the tech team, especially. Lamia has mentioned everybody. I want to especially mention tech team. And of course, I ditto everybody that we have to say that what a wonderful work they have done round the clock and behind everything. And Lamia is the one who's driving us all crazy. we tried very hard to stay away from her, but there's no way. And because she got sick, we thought finally she would cool down a little bit. She didn't, and she was hospitalized. Stayed there for 7 days, and from the hospital she was driving everybody crazy. So there's no use putting her in the hospital. So she had the dengue the last minute. So we thought this is the end of it. It's not going to work out. But she didn't give up. She was in dengue fever back home, stayed there for 1 week, and then pushed her to hospital because it's getting more serious. But she didn't stop. So she continued, and finally had this crazy round-the-clock conference of conferences. So thank you, Lamia, for making it happen. And when you get the next email from Lamia, watch out. She's inviting for something else then, or some another conference maybe. Maybe the next conference is coming up, something like that. So please be aware of what's coming up. She will not spare you from this thing. And also thank all the celebrities, or the ministers, and the representatives of the UN organizations, CEOs, even the president of IOC, Thomas Bach, those who responded to our invitation and appeared and participated in our conversation, in our discussion. We are very grateful to them. We would continue to be in touch with all of you who have joined from the celebrity and the special groups to participate and inspire us. We needed a super dose of inspiration. That's what the whole mega conference is all about. And this is that mega inspiration that we get from the super dose that we get. It's seeing each other is the most inspiring thing to happen. That's what happens. Even if you cannot see each other physically, shake hands, hug you, but still by seeing on the screen, it's a tremendous amount of inspiration. That inspiration is the outcome of all this discussion we are having. We get depressed, we get to complain, keep complaining about everything, but our inspiration finally supersedes everything. We still keep on hoping, we keep still being optimists. We become compulsive optimists in the end. We don't give up. Giving up is not our option. We have to solve the problem that we have on our hand, no matter what it takes. That's a spirit that we have been taking. The first part of the whole conference was conference of the academia. And academia has been wonderful in the participation, in the research, and the discussions, and so on. And we are very happy because of this global summit, and also our interaction with the East Africa and Africa in general. This year we had 8 new YSBC, Yunus Social Business Center, in 8 universities in Africa. So that's quite an achievement and a response that we got, because we are always trying to see how to connect with Africa. Africa is always something that we always thought this is the continent which will lead us from this trouble. Africa has been left behind always, but I keep saying that if you're in a line, if you're on the front and somebody's in the back, if you turn around, the guy who is on the back, he becomes the front. So we are no going back in our direction. So that means we are turning around. When we turn around, Africa becomes our leader, because that's the direction we want to go. So this is the chance I see always, because Africa is the continent of the young people. And young people is the one who is taking us out of this mess. Otherwise, we will deteriorate continually. So this is the thing I was trying to connect with Africa. So I'm very happy with Mount Kenya. They enthusiastically accepted that. And Catholic University of Namibia has been very active all along. Now other universities, all 8 universities together, we see a nucleus of something that our academics can do. So this is one area that we want to see something very significant for us. We see pessimism in the whole picture, but we see a future in the picture. When the night is the darkest, the light of the dawn is the nearest. So this is what we see. It's the darkest moment for us. We want to see the light of the dawn coming up very soon. And that's what we try to build up during our discussions. All these discussions lead to one thing. We just try to inspire. We try to remain optimistic and become more optimistic than ever. This is what all the exercise is all about. What we have done around this 7 days of non-stop marathon conferences and so on. And I'm surprised that people didn't get tired. They keep showing up, keep working, and that's the statistics you're giving. It's a fantastic thing to see people are responding. And out of this, what we got is something very satisfying for me. One is the social business pharma. This is one I keep saying is my dream project, because after seeing what happened to vaccine situation, how people could become so selfish, ugly selfish, that they want to make money at the cost of people's lives. I cannot weigh that kind of thing, that you have to make money at the cost of people's lives. I said this very clearly shows economics doesn't have something called humanity inside of it. It's squeezed out completely. So economics is a subject which has nothing to do with human beings. It's a robotic science. It's the robots, just money-making robots do all these businesses and so on. So I thought only escape route for us is to bring social business into the pharmaceutical sector. So Hans is trying best, and he has given us hope that we can get together and really create that social business pharmaceutical company, not only to make vaccines, produce vaccines, and the drugs. Drugs are always unnecessarily expensive because they want to make money. Like $1 vaccine being sold for $170, that's the kind of money. They gloat that they are making 64% profit on their investment and so on in the vaccine. So that's the kind of gloating that we see, how they can supercharge people at the cost of their misery and so on. So we want to create that social business pharmaceutical company. And hopefully if it works out, then we'll have its subsidiaries all around, so that all the drugs are available at real cost, near to cost of production, so that people can afford to have drugs in a convenient way, rather than feel frustrated that they cannot buy. They don't have the money to buy the life-saving drugs available in the market, but extremely expensive. So this is one area that I was very happy with the outcome of this conference, and also seeing the youth engaged here with the 3.0 convention being added. This is a new thing which is added in this super conference, absolutely new. We had the academic conference, we had the Global Social Business Summit. Now we added one more piece, which is 3.0 Club. So I see 3.0 Club will be the real outcome of this, one of the important outcome of this summit that we have, or the super conference that we have, marathon conference that we have. And if that thing picks up, I think that will be something that we can really energize the young people. This is just to get the young people to think and see what they can do, where they can take us together. So this is one area that we want to see make things happen, and continue with that direction, with the young people taking charge of that, and getting all the 3.0s to understand the 3.0s together in this the 3.0 clubs, by seeing not only we keep talking about the global warming and then talk about 3.0s as a separate subject, global warming and something else, each one. We have to definitely describe, these are all interconnected issues. This is the subject today, even in this closing session, we are talking about the agriculture, employment, healthcare, and all those things coming up. It's all interconnected. It's just to give an example, the way I feel it, it's not the academic way, it's just feel it. The more this pandemic is one. The more this global warming keep happening, what will happen? To me, it's very clear picture. The world will divide another way: safe world and unsafe world. Like the vaccines, they created their own world. So there will be a safe world, there will be unsafe world. So what will be the tendency of the people? Unsafe world people try to get closer and closer to this safe world. So the massive migration will begin because you cannot live there. Like you talk about all the islands getting disappeared. So you think island disappear, people will disappear? People will not disappear. People are very tough. They will all come to the land where they can live. They have to find their way. So they will come. And the people who are still with the mainland, but water is coming and going underground, going underwater. So what they will do? They will go to safe ground, so move up. And gradually this safe world becomes squeezed, unsafe world becomes bigger. So this will be a tremendous amount of tension. The tension between people, tension between the wealth concentration, people will be angry why you have all the money, you don't have anything like that. So those tensions are all integrated, it's not separate. Administration will become important, tension between neighbors will become important, hostility becomes a regular thing. So all the things that we are talking about, unemployment will become shooting up because people have left everything. So not only is it global warming and the food situation just mentioned today in this session, food will be scarce because this lost food area will disappear and people will not be able to get the land to cultivate. So this is the tension that we are waiting for. So it's not just safe thing that we just talk about the global warming part. So we have to put all these 3 zeros together so that we know that it's all direction we have to move and make it happen. So this is the direction that we want to go. And this this summit and this mega conference that we just conclude gave us the direction, give us the light that maybe we can move this way. So this is what we continue to work together. I'm very happy to have all of us together, get that super dose of inspiration in us and getting ready for the next conference. I hope it will not be a mega conference. This should be again a regular social business day in June, 28 to 30th of June as usual. And we look forward to it. But in the meantime, whatever we have gained during this conference, we'll use it so that by the time we come there, we have concrete actions. We know whatever governments are promising, this is their kind of work, but we have our own agenda to make sure we create our ultimate goal that we set ourselves, a world of 3 zeros. That's what we want to go. And thank you very much for participating in it, and inspiring us so that we can move forward and make that happen. And nothing is impossible for human being. That's what we have to keep in our mind. All we have to do is to make up our mind. Let's make up our mind. I'll make it happen. Thank you very much for attending. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for those inspiring words. And again, thank you for charting the course for us over the next 12 months, over the next decade, and so on and so forth. We thank everyone who's joined us. And the vote of thanks has already been done, but we would like to thank all the participants who've been with us for the last many, many days. We deeply appreciate. The statistics only show how you connect deeply with the cause that we are trying to promote here, the social business movement in general. This hybrid event obviously produces a very unique opportunity, which is all these sessions are available digitally for you to view. So please go back, and this gives us the opportunity to go through the sessions and the workshops of the academia conference, all the sessions, the workshops, the 3-0 Club convention that we have had, of course, the Country Forum report back. So please go, feel free, these are extremely great resources for us to go through, and it will only inspire you to get more integrated to the movement, and of course, lead us all towards a world of 3 zeros. With that in mind, we officially close the session, and we look forward to seeing you next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you
Bye-bye
so
to
much.
everybody. Good night. Good
Thank
night,
you.
good evening, good morning, wherever it fits. Thank you. We don't know where we are. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank
See you
you.
next time.
Bye.
Get ready for Social Business Day. It's coming. Lamia
Thank you,
is
sir.
getting back into work.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Lamia.
Thank
Promi,
you.
thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Oh, bye.
Bye-bye. Khuda Hafiz.